Bert Oliva's Mastermind Circle.
Welcome back to another Mastermind session. I'm really excited today because we have an interview, a special interview we want to have with you guys today. Make sure that you participate. The more you put in, the more you get out on everything in life. Number two, I want to welcome not only the members, but also the new guests that we have that decided to show up today and wanted to see what Mastermind was all about. So again, my name is Bert Oliva. I'm really excited, and I want to make sure you all are here. So you guys ready? If you're ready, I need you to raise your hand. There's a button on the bottom that says raise hands, just to make sure you guys are with me. Okay, there we go. Come on now. Okay, beautiful.
Bert Oliva is an international orator. He speaks around the world about his experiences and teaches humanology, the scientific study of human potential. He has enchanted audiences all over the world, showing them the power of mind over matter.
He's one of the most talented speakers out here, and I highly recommend him to any type of.
The more prepared you are, the luckier you'll be.
He is the world-renowned authority on leadership and human behavior.
Mr. Bert Oliva.
Bert Oliva!
He's considered the voice of inspiration and motivation. Today he'll pass his knowledge on to all of us.
For over 2 decades, Bert Oliva has touched the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. Bert has a dedicated social media following and an impressive online influence few possess, enabling him to communicate with audiences he has touched near and far.
I think he's one of the greatest motivators out there.
The thing I love about Bert is he's on stage and he gives his heart every single time.
He has developed many programs, recorded audio CDs, and written books, all of which to help those ranging from individuals to corporate and Fortune 500 companies. He has dedicated his life to speaking all over the globe and met some of the most influential and powerful people in the world.
Okay, let's go.
He has also coached highly successful business executives and politicians.
Normally seen as impossible.
I believe that I did it.
An infectious motivator.
So get ready to learn tools that will help you tap into your potential.
Pay attention, this is real stuff.
Get ready to have an experience you won't soon forget. Please help me welcome Bert Oliva.
Now, let me go ahead and introduce you who our guest is for today.
Elizabeth Kipp is a longtime seeker of truths with a foot each in the spiritual and scientific worlds. Her life experiences and training enable her to bridge the gap between the two. She has taken a 3-pronged approach to the role of health facilitator and helps people unleash their inherent power to heal. To achieve this, she uses a grounding in science, a foundation in the spiritual world, and a lifetime of experience. Elizabeth is also an empowerment coach, EFT tapping and ancestral clearing practitioner, and Kundalini yoga teacher. And tonight she is here to share her knowledge with us. So let's welcome Elizabeth Kipp.
I'm excited. Alexa, you excited?
Extremely excited.
Yeah.
Elizabeth has this energy that I just want everybody to have the experience with her.
Yeah, we met her. This is our second year that we did the cruise, the Social Wow Factor cruise, that if you don't know anything about, you need to find out about it. You need to be there next year. But I mean, it's been an amazing experience, and seeing her speak and what she talks about, and actually some of the magic, I call it magic, what she did online was, at the event was incredible.
Yeah.
So we're going to be sharing some of that with you today. So she's here. Let me go ahead and pop her up. Elizabeth.
How are you today? Good evening, both of you, and I'm so honored to be here with you and the Masterminders. This is awesome.
You look fantastic.
Thank you.
So we wanted to get started in getting to know you a little bit better than, than we already know you. So I read that you were actually from Wilmington, Delaware.
I am. That's correct. Yep. Born and raised there.
And then you spent some time in Canada.
Yes. My husband got a postdoctoral fellowship, and we took our 2-year-old son up there. I went by air ambulance because I had just had surgery. So I went from one hospital to another, literally. When we moved from Kansas we were in graduate school at the University of Kansas. We moved from Kansas to New Brunswick, Canada. We were there for 8 years. My husband solved a very interesting problem in the scientific world up there with the spruce buckworm. So we're both biologists. Our background is in biology.
Elizabeth, I got to go back a little bit more. One of the things I love about my interviews is I like to find out a little bit more about people and how did it all get started. Before you became that person, before you got married, who were you as a child?
Well, I was a very driven, athletic person. I was raised in a family of athletes. This is where the chronic pain sets in.
Okay.
I was raised in the no pain, no gain deal. So, yes, I have an athletic physiology, which is wonderful, but here was the problem. When I was 14, I was an equestrian. I did a lot of that. I was a child champion, nationally known equestrian.
Okay.
And I was training a green filly one day when I was 14 years old over fences, and she bucked kind of funny, and I wasn't expecting it, and I flipped forward and landed on a rock in the training corral on my fifth lumbar and broke it in half. But here's the thing. Because of the no pain, no gain thing, and because of the way it broke, I remember when I fell, I kind of went, uh-oh, you've done it now. But I was actually able to get up and walk from that accident. So because I didn't know any better, I just figured I kind of had a bruise. And I got up and walked. I knew enough to not get back up on that horse in that moment because I didn't feel very good. And I didn't think I'd serve the horse very well. So we always, when we fall or when a horse does something bad, we always get back up and start again. That's the only time my whole life I didn't get back up on a horse. And here was the green filly, so it was not good for her, but you know, the trainer took over. So I went for another 7 years, and I had pain in my back, but I didn't attend to it. I just kept moving through life because that's how my culture was.
No pain, no gain. The mindset was there already.
Yeah, we just pushed through, and I never talked to anybody about it. And finally, one day I had been working in a food co-op, and I was very strong. So I would take a 25-pound bag in one hand and throw it over one shoulder and grab another with another and throw it over the other shoulder, walk upstairs. Like you can imagine that with a broken fifth lumbar, wild. I mean, the front part of that lumbar slipped forward in my back. Wow. Pulled the nerves with it. And anyway, amazing. Finally, one day I came home from the co-op and I actually couldn't get up the stairs. It didn't matter how much I pushed myself, I wasn't going anywhere. And I went to my knees and I kind of went, hey, maybe something's actually wrong with you. Right?
Wow. Were you able to associate it back to that first fall?
Well, I didn't do that until I actually went to see a chiropractor. Okay. And he took some x-rays and he said, you know, I'm seeing an old accident. And as soon as he said that, I went, aha, I think maybe I did hurt myself after all. So anyway, they kept me going for about 7 years, and after that, and then about 9 months after I had my son, that slip became very unstable, and it ended up slipping forward off the pelvis, off the spinal cord into the pelvis 80% of the way, and pulling the nerves with it. I had 3 surgeries to try and repair it, and I had just huge amounts of pain once the surgery started. And the only answer that the doctors had for the pain was get yourself as fit as possible, which I did. It didn't make the pain go away. And they gave me opiates and anti-anxiety medicine, which actually didn't solve the problem. In fact, it actually made the whole thing worse. But that was their only answer.
Right. Especially back then, that's usually the way they did things.
They're still doing it. So unfortunately, they're still doing it. They don't know any better. So in 2013, so fast forward to 32 years later, I was so sick. I had searched far and wide for a solution. I knew there was a solution. I just didn't know what it was. I knew there was a solution. I had tried acupuncture, and I had tried, you name it, I tried it. I did hatha yoga, I did meditation, I did all kinds of things. Those things don't work as well, as powerfully when you're on medication as they do when you're not on medication.
Right.
So that was kind of a problem. The other thing, that turned out that the medication was actually causing some of the pain, so that was an issue. By the time 2013 showed up, I was at 82 pounds. I'm at 135 right now. So I was 82 pounds, and I was clearly dying. And I was on so much fentanyl and Ativan that I would go to sleep at night, and I didn't know if I was going to wake up. And people were dying from fentanyl overdoses. And I was taking maximum doses because I had been on it for so long, and it still wasn't working. And I finally was like, you know what, Elizabeth, enough. Like, you know, either you're going to die or you're going to find the answer, and you're going to find it now. And I literally got on my knees and I prayed and I said, please, would you please show me the way? I've just had enough. And I did that, and I also put the call out to all my friends and said, could somebody please help me? And my son works in the personal growth world, and about half of his audience is in recovery from addiction of some sort. He had a friend who was an addiction counselor, and she knew someone who was at the Betty Ford Center who ran a pain management program. So he called me, and his name is Dr. Peter Prescott, and he said to me, maybe your pain medicine's causing your pain. And I'm like, what?
It doesn't make sense, right?
What are you talking about? And I like, who is this guy? And where have you been all my life? And then he says, and we can help you reset your stress response. And I was like having panic attacks that were unpredictable and frequent. And I couldn't find the pattern. And, you know, as a scientist, I'm always looking for the pattern. What is the cause? And I couldn't find the pattern. He says, we can reset your stress response, and we think we can take you off your medication. I'm like, dude, I'm coming. So I was amazed. And I have to say that I thought he was really giving me just a lot of hot air, because no doctor had said anything, and I've been let down by so many doctors that I just thought, well, you know, it's die or do this. And I'll do this just because it's not die. And maybe I'll survive the detox, which I almost didn't. So anyway, I went into his pain management program, and 52 days later, after a lifetime of pain, I walked out with no pain.
That's amazing.
And I'm off my medication.
And how was that feeling, though, when you finally were able to go?
I will never forget. I was 12 days in a hospital bed detoxing because it was very difficult. Mm-hmm. And I remember we kind of got me up out of that bed after 12 days into a wheelchair, because I had laid there for, you know, you lose all your muscle tone after that 5 days. So 12 days is a long time. It's very weak. So they moved me from the bed to a wheelchair. And I remember distinctly getting up and standing just ever so long on my spine. And I was like, what is this? I had no pain in my back. And that was such a foreign thing to me. Couldn't even conceive it in that moment. I was like, what? There's no pain in my back. And I actually believe that I actually believed what I was feeling. This is key here. If I had said, I don't even believe what I'm feeling, you know, I may have slipped right back to where I was, but I actually took it in and said, thank you. Would you please give me some more of this? And I sat down and I went into Pain Track, and I did everything that Dr. Peter said.
That's amazing. During that time that you were going through the pain, because I know that you studied plant science. Did you ever use any of that plant science to try and heal yourself?
I'll tell you how I use the science. It's very important. When I got up to Canada, I was recovering from my second surgery. I had 4 different surgeries. I went to see the doctor, and the doctor said, Alyssa, he looked at my x-rays and he looked at me, and he made a conclusion. He said to me, Elizabeth, you will be in level 7 out of 10 pain for the rest of your life, 24/7, and you will be in a wheelchair when you're 40. And I believed him in that moment. And I broke down and I cried and I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't stop crying for 2 weeks. I don't cry. That's like a thing for me. Like, really? I'm still crying? How is this possible? I was devastated by that prognosis. But here's the thing. There was a part of me that knew there was an answer. I just didn't know what the answer was. So I kept looking, and I kept looking for 2 weeks through all that dark time. I went through all these stages of grief, except the last one, which was acceptance. I never accepted that diagnosis, that prognosis. I never accepted it. Instead, I had an epiphany. This was it. That doctor is not a fortune teller. That doctor is operating under a scientific paradigm, a framework. And we know scientific paradigms shift.
Yep.
He's telling me something that he thinks is factual, and yet science works in probabilities. So what he really meant to say, he just didn't say it, was the probability of you getting better and having, this much is pretty high. He didn't leave me any room for hope in that prognosis. He just gave me, this is it. And if I had not known about science being all about probabilities and not facts, I never would have gotten to that place. And in that moment, when I realized that he was actually stuck in his own paradigm, I empowered myself. I said, you know what? He lives here in the science world, which I understand, but we live in the all that is. That was the difference. And that meant that the possibilities of me healing were much bigger. So I, in that moment, empowered myself and said, I will find a way to heal. There is a way. I just haven't found it yet. And the operative word there is yet.
Well, you spoke right now about the 5 stages of grief, and you said that you hadn't accepted the 5th one, which is acceptance. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure there might be some people out listening right now to this that might be experiencing one of the stages and not know it. Could you maybe go over real briefly the 5 stages?
Wow, I'd have to look it up. I will say this, because I don't actually have them on my mind, and I have to actually look them up, and I can't do that and be at Zoom at the same time, but I will say this about chronic pain. When I had chronic pain, and because of the way the medical community looks at it, their best shot is give you medication, and they really don't know what to do with it. It was an unusual doctor that I worked with, very unusual. Effective, but he's right at the edge of the scientific paradigm, so he's kind of new. His methods are kind of new. This is what it's like to be a chronic pain patient. We hear this is our best, our best thing is pain medicine. And I had acupuncture, and I had massage, and I did yoga, and I meditated, I did everything I could, but none of it solved the problem. So there was a big part of me that made the conclusion, I'm in prison. I'm in a prison and I can't get out. I can't find the key to get out. I can't find the door to put the key in. This is where we live as chronic pain patients. And the medical world, a large part of the medical world reinforces that. So we become we lose hope. We lose hope. And we're very isolated. We don't know, the first time I sat in Pain Track, there were 20 other people like me in the room, and I'd never met 20 other people that were like me.
What about the chronic pain? I know that in your case it was a broken back, but I'm sure there's other people that have other types of chronic pain. So what would you consider to be other types of chronic pain that people are going through?
Especially for the listeners that are people or viewers that are watching, give them some other samples.
Well, I'll give you our definition of chronic pain.
Okay.
Any pain, physical, emotional, spiritual, it doesn't matter to the brain. They all send a signal to the brain, it hurts. Same signal, doesn't matter what the pain is. Any pain that is felt for 15 days or more, 15 days for 3 months or more is considered chronic.
Okay.
Wow.
I love
So
it.
it's not just physical.
Yeah, I even said that emotional. I think it was a beautiful thing that you said emotional, because some people will consider that as being chronic pain. It has to be a physical thing.
Yeah.
So everything, I mean, I love the way you broke it down. You know, over 15 days and then the last 3 to 6 months. I think that's great explanation.
Yeah. The other piece of that, thank you. The other piece of that is oftentimes spiritual and emotional pain will actually journal over into physical pain, which in my case it actually did. So I did have a physical injury, but why is it that I didn't recover from it, right? I also had, even when I was a young baby, until like I was 59 years old and finished Dr. Peter's pain track, I had this thing called irritable bowel syndrome. And any listeners have that or have experienced that, that is quite something to walk around with.
That's crazy. So tell us about these pushers from hell that you've referred to.
Oh, you read that. Right. Okay, yeah. Okay, so that's an interesting story. There's a drug called Oxycontin, which was brought onto the market as a 12-hour effective for 12 hours. It's an opiate. That's the way it was marketed. My experience of that was they gave it to me when it first came out, and I was on it for about a year. Here was the thing with me. I always did what the doctors wrote. Whatever they told me, this is how you take this medicine, take it this way. So I didn't take more than I was supposed to take. That doesn't mean it didn't cause problems with me. I'm just saying I always obeyed orders. And in this case, it was written for every 12 hours. But my experience of it was this. When I had the medicine and I maybe had, after a half an hour of taking it, I actually had a little bit of an effect where I was a little more relaxed. I got a little bit of relief from the pain. And then after about the 2-hour mark, I was right back where I was with pain. And I had to wait another 10 hours before I could take the medication.
Wow.
That right there, my nervous system I was like, where's the medicine? And I didn't know how to calm down. That is a perfect prescription for addiction right there. Wow. So when I say I went looking for, I don't remember how I said it, but something like, I went looking for a cure for my chronic pain and I found the pushers from hell, that's what I mean.
Were you already practicing sadhana yoga?
Sadhana. Sadhana is a spiritual practice. It's Kundalini yoga. Sadhana is a spiritual practice. Everybody probably does a sadhana. You know, a lot of us get up in the morning and we say thank you. Maybe that's a sadhana. Some of us get up in the morning and we say a prayer. That's a sadhana. My sadhana is just a little different, but I've always had a sadhana of some sort. I've always been really grateful. I think that's another reason why I was able to get through this situation, was that even when I was really hurting, like beyond belief, I was still grateful for what I had and that it wasn't worse. So I think that's kind of helpful. I mean, you asked about sadhana, and that's kind of the heart of sadhana, is being grateful and bowing.
I mean, you also mentioned that your son himself, he does seminars around the world, and he teaches for people that are in pain. Is that addiction, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that part of because he saw what you were going through and he got into the industry, or how did that come about?
It's so interesting because he grew up with me being in so much pain, and it's been very interesting that he'll say this, he's been able to help so many other people with what he calls the original incident. He'll take them back to their childhood and find out what is it that's kind of running their program that's keeping them blocked.
Right.
We both work with people with blocks, and he does that, and he helps them clear that. And what was interesting was, for so long, because I worked with him at the Daily Love from its beginning around 2007, I think it was, until 2013. And And he would say, I can help all these people, but I can't help my mom. And it was so beautiful because in the end, he was the one that found the addiction counselor that found Dr. Peter, who helped him.
Amazing.
You know, and is that awesome or what? It's perfect.
Awesome. So what's the difference between Kundalini yoga and Hatha yoga?
Yes, Hatha yoga is, Kundalini yoga is the yoga of awareness. Hatha yoga, I'm not sure what the word Hatha means, but it's a very different, you're still present in the moment. The practice is more about the asana and also kind of about a lifestyle. In Kundalini yoga, there's a lot of, there's a physical practice, there's a spiritual practice, there's a meditation practice, there's a lot of chanting. It's all about the yoga of awareness, consciousness. Just a little bit different.
And today, where you are today, are you still living in chronic pain, or do you use these tools that you're teaching your students, but you're actually living these tools, and which is the one that's worked best for you?
So I walked out of Pain Track first week of November in 2013 without chronic pain anymore.
Wow.
And this is what Dr. Peter said. He said, Elizabeth, because we all, at the Betty Ford Center, there were all kinds of addictions there, but there was a small subset, 20 of us out of a group of 100, that were chronic pain patients labeled as such. And he said, and the rest of us were alcoholics and addicts that were all, you know, getting clean and in recovery. And he said to me, he said, Elizabeth, you are not just an addict in recovery. You are a recovering chronic pain patient. That's different. So I've spent the last 3 years learning, what does that mean? How am I different from other people in recovery? What are the fine points on that? And I would say that the first one that pops up that you asked about, what's my biggest tool? Mm-hmm. Learning not to push through the world. How to go gently.
So being that you have a background in biology and now you've done all this whole new journey, do you think that it's something that medical professionals should be introduced to nowadays in traditional medicine?
They will be. The program I was on, so I'm kind of a living example of this program working. Dr. Peter had a 94% success rate in his program. That's, you know, wow, that's a huge number. You know, anything over 5% in science is considered significant. So 94% is, you know, astronomical. His methods are different, and I'm not exactly sure what it's going to take for the medical world to catch on, but I will do what I can to be the example, be the living example that it can happen.
That's excellent.
So what is it that you're actually doing in today? What is your journey? What are you going after? What is it? What's your message overall?
Well, first of all, the message is we can heal from chronic pain. That's huge. Most of us don't even believe that's possible. The other one is commit to your healing. Are you willing to commit to yourself? That's a big question.
Yeah.
We got to get serious. And are we willing to do the work? Do we have the courage? Can we continue? The end of that is when we do, we find contentment. And then we find mentors. Then we start to contribute and we mentor others on the path. That would be it.
So what is a boho princess?
Oh, well, I'm kind of like an old hippie. So I think I gave myself an upgrade in the name there.
That's funny. Well, you studied something that is a hobby of mine, actually. And they call me the human GPS because I love it. But you studied cartography.
I did. Yeah, I did.
Tell us a little bit about that. That's so interesting to me. Sorry.
Well, very sweet. I can tell you a very sweet story around that. Brief. So I worked, this is where the plant science came in. I worked with a program called the Kansas Applied Remote Sensing Program, which was worked under a NASA grant in the Carter administration. And we were working on, it was a group of geographers, and they needed somebody who knew something about plants. So they hired me. And we were looking at these satellites that look down on the planet. The Landsat satellites, they're land resource satellites with scanners, imagery. They look at the land, and it was up to us to look at the images and figure out what was on the image. And I did the plant part. I could just tell you, we did a lot of projects, but one of the things we did was we wanted to bring back the pronghorn antelope to Kansas, which was, almost, it was an endangered species, almost completely wiped out. And they came to us and they said, where could we release these animals where they would be able to survive the best? And it was up to us to find where's the best pasture land, where's the water. So all the resources that the pronghorn antelope needed were there. So we looked at the images and we said, here, and that's where they put them. And they're still there today. That was back in 1980.
That's awesome. Now, we're going to get into some really important things that you're actually practicing today. But before we do that, I want to ask you a really, really, really important question. What is your favorite chocolate?
Chocolate Love, 70% dark, or raw cacao. Thank you for that. I love that. You guys remembered.
Just so that you know, she is a connoisseur of chocolate.
Yeah, I have to keep my sugar down, and I have a very strict diet, but I allow myself a little bit of chocolate from time to time.
That's a great allowance there. So I wanted to get into talking a little bit about what the EFT tapping is, because that was amazing. I had never ever seen it before.
It's the first time we've ever seen it.
Yeah, and now that you introduced us to it, I'm seeing it.
Not only did we see it, we saw it in action.
Yeah.
It's really interesting the way that, we knew there were not any actors. We know that no one really was, doing something just to get the attention. We saw it actually working. And that's one of the things that impressed us.
Yes.
We love those things when they happen live. Because at the end of the day, we've been doing this for over 23 years now, and we've seen a lot. But every now and then, there's like I call you the spiritual gem. You stumble across certain people and tools and techniques, and you're like, wow, this is really interesting.
People need to know about this.
Yeah.
So what is EFT tapping?
EFT tapping. It's called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique / tapping, because we tap. It's a blend of ancient Chinese acupressure using the 72,000 meridians we have in the body and modern psychology.
What about the ancestral clearing that we also were a witness to? That was incredible.
Mm-hmm. Ancestral clearing, interesting. Spiritual teachers have been telling us for, I don't know, since the beginning of time, that we come into this life with the burden of our ancestors. We do. Science actually about 10 years ago came up with this study of epigenetics, this on the outside of the gene, the switches that we can kind of turn on and off. Ancestral clearing is a piece of helping us resolve burden we're carrying. For instance, my father and mother were in World War II, and they dealt with a lot of trauma. They never resolved it. So it's in their nervous system. They get together and they got married, and they had my brother and I. And my brother and I also carry the trauma that in our nervous system that our parents had. And it's been going on for thousands of years. So you can imagine what we carry at this generation, right? So ancestral clearing helps us clear some of that burden. I'm not saying it clears it all. It might. In my experience, I've been working with it for 3 years, and I don't feel quite clean yet, but I'm a lot lighter than I used to be.
What can happen after one session, though, for someone that just wants to give it a try? Will they experience anything in one session?
Yeah, they can. Yeah, I can take somebody through it in 25 minutes, and at the end of 25 minutes, they'll feel lighter. If they're willing and actually wanting to do the work, they will feel lighter. No question. Every single person that I have ever worked with, or any person that I have ever seen anyone else work with that does this work, feels the same way. It's quite remarkable. And it's experiential. It's very hard to describe it in words without having the experience.
Yeah, there's two things you've said, and I'm not quoting it verbatim, but you said something about, people really wanting to do something. It's like acceptance of responsibility. They can't go to any seminar, any workshop, unless they're ready for that change, nothing's going to happen. So they need to get engaged and involved. The other thing you said, which is interesting, was not accepting others' facts. Because if you would have accepted the facts from those doctors and so forth, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. So those are important things. Can you reiterate some of that so the listeners can understand how important it is to be aware?
Well, as a scientist, we're taught question everything. And really interesting. I mean, it pounded into me, and yet it took me 2 weeks in all that crying to go back to the fundamentals, question everything, right? I finally got to, what is the story with this guy? What is it? It took me a while to get that, and I could be a slow learner, but we need to hear it again and again. Question everything. Does it make sense in your heart, in your own heart? Is it landing right for you? Right?
Yeah.
And that's what it did. That's when you knew that it was time. This is it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you teach EFT tapping, ancestral clearing, and I know that another big tool that you teach your students is regenerative communication. What is that?
Generative communication is it's hard to put it into 2 words, so it's not a very good name.
Give us 6 words.
I will. It's how to have the conversation you always wanted to have but were afraid to try.
Ooh, nice.
Because you didn't know how to do it, right? You have a thing with somebody and you're really uncomfortable. You don't want to talk to them about it because you think you don't know what's going to happen, and you're all worried about what's going to happen, so you don't have the conversation. This is an actual process to help you get through it, because it is possible to have an uncomfortable conversation in a comfortable way so both parties actually win.
That is really awesome.
You also have been quoted to say something, riding the flow of abundance. Can you explain that? Because I think that's really important.
Yes. I said something about bowing no matter what, right? The giving thanks. I don't care how bad it gets. I don't know. I'm the kind of person that, there's the half full, glass half full, glass half empty person. I'm grateful I've got a glass. So I have a little different perspective on that. Right? So when we dig deep into gratitude and we really actually feel in our bones, we are riding on the flow of abundance. We can't help it. We open ourselves to all there is.
You've also said, be here now.
Oh, well,
absolutely. Because everybody talks about being in the now. So what does that mean?
The past already happened. The future hasn't happened yet. That means, where's all the possibility? It's right here for us. It's not in the past because that happened, and it's not in the future. We can't get that yet. So it's right here, all of it.
What tools do you use to make sure you're in that state of awareness to be in the present?
So that's part of my sadhana. Every morning I sit and I do spiritual practice. There's prayer and chanting and meditation, and it's all kind of the same thing. Prayer, chanting, meditation, it's all present moment stuff. And here's the thing that's interesting. The mind wants to wander. And it doesn't matter in this practice how many times the mind decides to wander, because we'll wander with it, as long as we come back to where we were and we start again and we stay right here in the now. We practice that every day. Why is that helpful? Because when I go then out into life off of my mat, my moment is bigger and richer because I'm aware. And when something happens to me in the world and maybe I get a little bit, oh, what is that? I actually know to stop and breathe and give myself a little space to respond instead of just react, which is, my MO was react to everything and be in panic. So to be completely opposite of that is a big deal.
And how long did it take you to be, I wouldn't say self-control, but to be able to be in a place that you can use these tools?
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that happened overnight.
Yeah. Well, I would say, Dr. Peter, that pain track was very effective. Getting off the meds and clearing my diet. I had to be very, clean my diet up, and I had to drink a lot of water. I keep my physical body quite healthy, and I do my practice like my life depends upon it because my life depends upon it. Period.
What we're gonna do is, we have a couple of people that want to ask questions. I want to get just a few questions in. So if you have any questions, tell Valerie right now. Go to the Q&A button. And I would love to have 1 or 2 questions because I really want Elizabeth to do something special for us and give us, you mentioned there's a couple of techniques you can share with us today.
The EFT, I believe she was going to give us a demonstration.
Right. So before we go into that, is there anyone asking a question? We have an anonymous question.
How do you deal with chronic pain if you aren't spiritual? Oh, great question. How do you deal with chronic pain if you're not spiritual?
If you're not a spiritual person.
It's interesting. It's a very interesting question. In the ancestral clearing practice, it's a beautiful practice because you don't actually have to believe in any higher power for it to work. Here's the key. You just have to be willing to get help. If you want help, you can get it. It doesn't matter what we call our higher power. If I call my father and say, call him Larry instead of John, which is what is, or Dad, is he still going to fix me breakfast or is he not going to fix me breakfast?
He's going to fix your breakfast.
That's right. Our higher power really doesn't care what we call it. He doesn't care if we call it anything.
That's a great explanation.
I love it.
I'm going to say this other thing. I'm going to say this. We are held in the wheel of life, whether we want to believe it or not. It's like gravity. Gravity acts on us whether we're actually believe that it's there or not. That's the same way it is with like this, all this energy that's out there, that's in here. We're held. We're not going to be dropped. We couldn't be dropped if we wanted to be. It's physics. It's not spiritual. It's physics. They just happen to meet in that place.
How many people have chronic pain?
25% of us. The estimates are 25% of everyone has chronic pain. Children all the way up to adults. Doesn't matter what the socioeconomic group is. It doesn't discriminate. Everyone has it. It's absolutely a silent epidemic. And for people in recovery, the numbers are 60% of people in recovery have chronic pain, and the other 40% are in recovery from it. Those are staggering numbers. Yeah, good question. Thank you for asking.
Well, that's it for the questions because I really want to get that special gift. So go ahead, lead the way and tell us how this works.
The tapping?
Yes.
So here's the thing. I would like everyone here in this moment, this is the best way I can do this from afar and not talking to you. I'd like everybody in this moment to think of the thing they're the most afraid of, like, a spider or drowning or a snake. It doesn't matter what it is. Whatever your thing is that you're afraid of, would like you to bring that in if you're willing. I'd like you to bring that into your consciousness and just sit there and imagine you're there. And then I want you to do this. I'm going to have to take my glasses off so you can see this. I want you to do this. I want you to take your fingers and tap where I'm tapping. Even though I'm feeling this, and repeat after me, even though I'm feeling this feeling.
Even though I'm feeling this feeling.
This feeling of being scared.
This feeling of being scared.
I'm terrified of this thing.
I'm terrified of this thing.
This thing I'm feeling.
This thing I'm feeling.
Oh my God, it's going to get me.
Oh my God, it's going to get me.
This feeling.
This
This feeling.
Top of the ear. This feeling I'm feeling.
This feeling I'm feeling.
I'm feeling this feeling. Back of the neck, right below the occiput on both sides. Tap there. I'm feeling this feeling. And then the front. And as I'm feeling this feeling, I accept myself in this moment.
As I'm feeling this feeling, I accept myself in this moment.
Down below the breast. I accept this feeling under the armpit. I accept this feeling. I accept how I'm feeling. Top of the head. Take a breath. Big breath in, big breath out. How do you feel now? Bigger, smaller difference? Any shift at all?
Yes.
Yes, I feel different and smaller. Not small, but I felt the difference.
Yeah, and that's just one round. Usually one round will work, but I will say this. I'm just going to tell you, I'm very careful with the chocolate because I've got a thing with sugar. It hits the same part of the brain as opiates. So you can imagine, right? I was addicted for a long time. So sugar, so I went and talked to a tapping person that I work with one day when I was like, my sugar addict was out of the barn and running in the field. I thought I'd never get her back in the barn. I was terrified. We sat down and we did 6. It took 6 rounds. He couldn't believe it. He'd never taken anybody through 6 rounds of tapping. It took 6 rounds, but we did it for 6 times until I calmed down. And you know what? She has never walked. That sugar addict has not left since. And that was 3 years ago.
I'm going to tap every time I get the urge of chocolate from now on.
Well, good thing is it's pre-recorded. So we recommend those people that want to do this. Number one, contact Elizabeth Kipp, and that's real simple. It's Elizabeth Kipp, Elizabeth-Kipp.com. We're gonna put the contact screen now, and also go back and watch the replay. Watch the replay. Watch this section and just practice it. And once you get comfortable enough, then you pick up that phone and you call her. Because let me tell you, if this is something that will help you and you think it's going to help you, give it a shot. I know there's a lot of skeptics out there. We're skeptical when it comes to a lot of things all over the world, and we saw it with our own eyes. We saw someone's state change immediately. We saw them going from a panic attack to actually, being in the present, in the now. And that took, I would say, maybe less than 10 minutes. It was like 7 minutes.
Maybe even less than that. It was incredible.
I really want people to do that. Let me go ahead and pull up her screen. If you're online right now, you can take a screenshot. This is Elizabeth on Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter, and also the website.
And you can see there's a dash in between Elizabeth and Kipp.
That's very important. You got to get that dash in there. So, Elizabeth, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you many of times. We're going to be working together and looking forward to seeing you in the next cruise. And I think
we'll see her before that.
Yeah, and I really love what you're doing. We really do.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing the gift of Elizabeth Kipp to so many people around the world.
Yeah, we'll have this edited, cleaned up, and everything, and we'll be able to share it for many, many years, and people actually can learn from this. This is a powerful tool, and I know that within that 1 hour, there's not enough time to really break it down, because we saw it live, and we saw how much, how powerful this tool really is. The tools that you share, besides this one that we're talking about.
So, do you have any messages, any last messages for our audience today, Elizabeth?
I'm just listening. And to who's on there now and who maybe will hear the replay, and what I'm getting is, do not give up hope. Just don't give up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very simple to the point.
That's what I like about her method.
Yeah.
You get it. It's simple. It's not complicated.
You are a blunt teacher. Say how it is. If you don't like it, then you just move on. That's one of the things I love about you. And that's it. That's what we need in our industry now. We need people that are honest and upfront and tells you their methods. And if people don't get it, then just move along and find someone else. This is a great industry and a great opportunity to change your life and not everything works for everyone. So we're always in search for new tools, new techniques, new people.
And new global gems.
Yeah, and we're happy we found you.
Yes.
So just want to let you know that. And, you know, you're great and you're awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. And I saw a different Elizabeth Kipp in this crew. So let me tell you, I opened my eyes. I was in the present.
Yeah, I have to say that my tendency, especially with my background, is to make things complicated, and that doesn't work with healing. It's really important for me to have I love the woo-woo and everything, but it doesn't work for me if I can't ground it. And if I can't just break it down into what is it exactly I'm supposed to do in this moment? What is the action step? That's the thing for me. It's why I'm blunt, because I kind of have to live that way.
Well, I made it as a compliment. You know,
yeah, that's right.
You bring a little bit of the woo-woo, but just enough for what they want to see, and then you tell them how it is. And that's, yeah, I love that. You know, it's great. So, Elizabeth, thank you so much. I'm going to sign off now. Everyone, this is Alexa Oliva. I'm Bert Oliva. Remember to live life
and don't let life live you.
And we'll see you next week.
Register online and join us today for all new live interviews and weekly topics only at themastermindcircle.com.